I mentioned I manage the Pigeon River country. It's some of the things that make it significant are the fact that it's home to Michigan's elk herd. You can go out my office is 26 miles from Gaylord, and if you drive around and spend a little bit of time looking, there's a pretty good chance that you can see an elk, you can see maybe if you're extremely lucky, bobcat, black bear. A lot of the other species, they're found in northern lower Michigan. They're going to be found in the Pigeon River country. And one of the reasons that it's so special and why it's so such a wildlife friendly place is because it's the largest contiguous block of public land in the Lower Peninsula. And the way we manage it there is really unique compared to other state forest lands. Michigan, and I'm going to talk about how much state public land we have in the state, but it's really, when you look at all the other state forests and parks and other things, we manage things differently there and quite uniquely. Here's a map of the forest on the right-hand side. It's about 20 miles long. It varies from 12 to 6 miles wide. There's 3 great, very important trout streams that flow through there. There's numerous small lakes, and so it's a big chunk of public land that you can go and camp and hunt or fish or whatever. And it's about 106,000 acres, and it's all in one big block. And I mentioned it's managed uniquely. One of the primary objectives of our management there is to manage for the wild characteristics. We don't allow a lot of things to happen there that may happen in other places. We don't have ORVs. We don't have snowmobile trails. We try to have really low impact recreational activities, hunting, fishing, some horseback riding, although that's limited, some mountain biking, that's limited. So we kind of manage things differently there. And along with that, we have a strong mandate to manage for early successional species, and that means young forests, openings in the forest, grasslands, open lands. And some of the things that we use to do that are fire. If you look on the slide here to the left, this is an aerial shot showing a burn we just did the week before last. You can see all that blackened ground was all grassland that's been set back.
That's scary.
Well, it's actually, those are the fun days. We kind of like doing those. Not that I'm a pyro or anything, but it's a lot of fun. And these are some aerial shots of some wildlife openings that are planted. They're tilled up and they're planted specifically for deer and primarily elk and wild turkeys. Same thing with that up there. So although we've got a big block of land, and some people that go out there have this connotation that, well, it's just this pristine park that nothing ever happens in. Actually, we manage it quite actively. There's also a focus on possibly a wolf or two coming down from the UP. We don't know, but it's an important place. Now, how does it tie into private land management? You've got the biggest block of public land in the Lower Peninsula all in one spot, and quite honestly, when you're managing wildlife species, especially species like black bear or elk that move, they have large home ranges, it's not big enough. And so there was a major initiative that went on for about 10 years, and I know HeadWaters was involved with that, Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation was involved with it, Huron Pines played a huge role in it, and what it involved is taking the public land here, sort of the core of the elk range, and then looking outside of the public land and all this private land that surrounds it, and contacting private landowners and saying, making site visits and writing management plans, and maybe doing cost shares on habitat improvement work. What can we do to improve the surrounding land, because the integrity of the public land that we work so hard to manage, really, a lot of it depends on the private land that surrounds it. Because quite honestly, if this is all going to be, shopping centers and Walmarts and factories and everything. We're just gonna be this island sitting out there. And for a wildlife species that has a large home range, you know, they need room to move, and certainly they don't know where the boundaries are. The waters don't know where the boundaries are. So the land really is, you know, we're managing, especially when you manage wildlife, you're managing a larger ecosystem or a larger landscape. So private lands are just hugely important, even for the management of public lands. So if you think about private lands in Michigan, the majority of the state is private lands. About 79% of the state is private land. We're very fortunate to have 21% of our state in the public domain that we can go out and enjoy and recreate on. But the private lands are such a vast majority of the land, you know, pattern in Michigan, the land ownership. It's really important what happens there on those private lands. And so, like Laura said, anything you can do to improve or enhance your private lands, they're going to be beneficial for a lot of different reasons. If you, here it's shown in white. You can see the UP has quite a bit of public land. Northern Lower, where we are, my area is right there. You know, quite a bit of public land. We have about 1.9 million acres of public land in the Northern Lower. But then if you get into southern Michigan, you see these little isolated islands out there of public land. And you've got this big sea of a lot of agriculture, woodlots and things like that. So if you think about that 79% of private land, anything you can do to help it is really going to not only improve the habitat for wildlife and things like that, but it's also going to improve the quality of life for all of us. And you can see that of the forested land in Michigan, only about 20% of it's public. So there's a large percentage that is private, is privately held. And that's important for a lot of reasons. That the activities that you do on those forested lands, certainly they have the potential to benefit wildlife, but they also provide forest products. As a landowner, they can provide a stream of income. You can do a lot of things on your property that improve it for conservation. And especially when you look at southern Michigan and how much agriculture or non-forested land is there, those backyard habitats really gain in importance. Now, there's a lot of private land in the state, but less than 10% of the landowners, private landowners in the state, actually seek the assistance of some of the professionals that can help you manage your land. And so there's a huge opportunity, and that's why groups like this are here to provide that expertise on what you can do with your land. And just another little tidbit of the landowners who do seek the advice, a large percentage of them want more wildlife on their land. That's something that you can actually tangibly see and experience, and that's very important to a lot of people in this state. If you're a hunter, a lot of times you want to improve your land for wildlife because maybe you want to enjoy the deer and see them during the year, but then you want to hunt them later. If you look at hunters, 79% are making use of private land. If you break down their effort, their recreation, 72% of that occurs on private land. So there's huge opportunities for private land management in Michigan and why it's important. We kind of throw around the terms habitat or wildlife habitat, sort of with an understanding that sort of everyone knows what that is. And basically what it is it's those things that an animal or an animal species needs to live. The basics are food, water, cover, and space. Along with space comes the interspersion, or how the habitats blend together. And another one is their juxtaposition, how they are located on the landscape. And you can see from this aerial photo, there's been some conservation work done along the stream, put in some vegetation there to keep runoff from going in the stream. But from an animal's perspective, it's not only providing on this block of land maybe some cover, some water, some food, but putting it all in a proximity that's close enough that it can be used by whatever species it is. Because certainly every animal would have its own requirements for habitat, its own requirements, and while some of them may overlap, each animal species is a little bit unique in that regard. So, and then one of the nice things about dealing with habitat is it's scalable in a sense that if you have a city lot and your home is in the suburbs or in the city and you have a backyard, there are things that you can do to take steps to improve that backyard for wildlife, whether it's birds or rabbits or songbirds, those types of things. It's all available to you to do. If you have a little bit more property, maybe you own a farm or a place that you go and hunt, you can do things like putting food plots or do wildlife plantings or things like that that are going to improve it for other species like deer or turkeys or elk. And if you're a really large landowner, maybe you have 100 acres or the farm is bigger, you can do things like commercial timber sales, which not only improve the habitat for certain wildlife species, but also can provide an income stream as well as forest products. I was at a Warehouser yesterday in Gray Lake. They make OSBs. It's owned by people like you and me, and those are being logged and supplying forest products. So, and a lot of those forestry practices can be very beneficial to certain wildlife species. Benefits to landowners, there's just a great big laundry list, but basically you can maintain, enhance, sustain forest ecosystems. You know, a lot of times there's a sort of this connotation that if you just let the land be and just let it go, that's going to be the most beneficial thing for wildlife. And you know, in some cases that's true, and in some cases that's a fine approach. You can do that. That's certainly a choice. But a lot of times, a lot of wildlife species that we enjoy, songbirds, ruffed grouse, woodcock, deer, elk, they require young forests. So those forest practices that set back the vegetation by cutting are very beneficial to wildlife species. And I'm going to talk about some of the habitat requirements coming up, but it's good. It's good to manage the land. And then there's the sort of the notion of the good habitat and bad habitat. And sometimes you hear those phrases, and well, that's not very good habitat. Well, it's really all relative because all animals or birds or whatever species they are have different requirements. What's bad for one may be great for another. So it's all about what your goals and objectives are. What do you want to see on your land? Do you want to see more songbirds, or do you want to see more squirrels? When it comes to my job in forest management, a lot of times it's a value judgment. A younger forest, this is a dense, regenerating aspen stand. It's kind of a dark photo, but it's just beyond the sapling stage. It's just starting to come on. It's really thick. That would be great for ruffed grouse. It would be great for woodcock. A lot of songbirds use early successional species. A lot of songbirds that are in a long-term permanent decline use early successional species. So that's great habitat for those species. It's great for deer and elk. It might not be as great for a pine marten. It might not be as useful. It probably could be. It would play a role in bear management, but they may not spend the majority of their time there unless they're feeding on blackberry bushes or something. It's all, but they're probably not going to have the materials there to den. They would need a bigger den tree or a swamp that they would den in. And then when you look at this hardwood forest, the grouse hunter is going to look at that and say, well, that's terrible habitat. There's no grouse in there. Although if the beech nut crop hits, then they're in there. So this whole notion of good habitat and bad habitat, it's just all relative. It depends on what you're trying to achieve. And the other thing is, habitat never stays the same. It's always changing. This stand on the left is going to look very, very different in 10 years, in 30 years, in 40 years, in 50 years. We're going to cut it again and start it over if aspen is our objective. So habitat is always changing, and when you're managing your own property, if you just want to let things go, that's fine, but the trees aren't going to, they're going to keep growing. And so you have to realize in doing that is a choice as well. So the action steps to this are to really decide that you want to do something. Decide you've got some land, whether it's a backyard, 10 acres, 100 acres or more. Decide that you want to do something to enhance it for wildlife or for whatever values that you hold important to you. Think about your goals and objectives. Certainly not everything is possible on every acre. So you have to really think about what you want to see. You want to be able to get out and go for a walk and see birds, or shoot a turkey, or really think about what you want to do, or maybe even just have a butterfly garden. So definitely consult your resources, and your resources would be those people in this room that really are the experts on what can be done and how to do it, and maybe what cost shares are available, or who can write a management plan for you. They bring me in to talk about the big picture stuff because I don't do details. I don't, and so everybody here in the room, they do the details, and they know, oh yeah, we can, if you want to do this, yeah, we'll get this person to write a management plan, and tell you what steps you can take to make that happen. In a more scientific sense, is this, conservation practice that you've put into play, is it getting the desired results? And if it's not, maybe you have to try something else, but that's sort of the general plan and how things progress. And as far as the resources, like I said, it's mostly the people in this room. Certainly the Department of Natural Resources has a lot of different conservation programs that we're involved with, both in forested landscapes here in the north and stuff in the south, focused on anything from jack pine ecosystems to threatened and endangered species on private lands to writing forest stewardship plans. So we're involved with that. NRCS, the Natural Resources Conservation Service, they're involved with the same things, or similar things, different programs, different cost shares. The Fish and Wildlife Service, they do the same thing. Conservation organizations like Huron Pines, they can set you up right from the beginning and point you in the right direction as to who to contact for what you want to achieve. Conservation districts certainly are involved with landowner assistance programs. Land conservancies like HeadWaters, Little Traverse Conservancy are involved with private land management, as well as private wildlife and forestry consultants. So I think the biggest thing is to urge you to take advantage of these resources that you have at your disposal. I mean, they really are, and they're going to assure that you can get a really good product.